I'm going to briefly try and summarize some of the approaches, techniques that you should consider using for studying, if you like, learning strategies to use. And these are based on the literature on learning. There's a wealth of studies, and I'm referencing just a couple. The first one is a summary of a very large number of studies and picks out what has the best basis for understanding. And the second website has a lot of useful information that's worth looking at to get more details than I'm presenting here. Let me first talk about the best ways to study based on this literature. The first is practice testing, and I'll describe more detail, but it certainly means doing the kind of things you would do in an exam, trying to answer questions, testing yourself. And the 4 stars indicates this is, based on the literature, has the most benefit. There's most evidence for its benefit. The second is distributed practice, not doing all the study for a topic at once, spreading it out over days, results in longer-term retention. And the third talks about interleaving when you're studying. Instead of spending an hour and a half on one narrow topic within a course, for example, doing different aspects for shorter periods of time and going back and forth improves learning. So first, let's talk about the practice testing. At first glance, this would appear to be counterintuitive, that you're going to remember something better, remember it longer, which is important. When you're giving challenging tests on material, tests where you don't have much chance of actually getting them right on the first try, you're bound to fail. The idea is that trying and failing to retrieve an answer from your memory helps you learn. So basically, an unsuccessful attempt to retrieve the information before you actually get the answer is an advantage. And so practice testing is much better than studying something a second time. Let's look at one example of how you might do this to practice. So if you have a book chapter you have to read, a number of books will have questions at the back to answer after you've read the book. So the idea is, before reading the chapter, answer these questions. Or try and answer these questions, with the idea you certainly have little chance when you haven't read the chapter. And if there aren't questions in the back, you could, for example, lots of books are going to have objectives, learning goals. Make these into questions, see if you can answer them. Or look at the headings for the chapter, the sections in the chapter. Make them into questions, see if you can answer. Then, certainly you're not going to be able to answer most of them. Now you read the book. And then you try and answer again. So you're trying to answer the same questions, but now you've read the book. And the idea then is study the sections that you had difficulty answering, and then wait, and then try and answer again. And you expect, of course, to see improvement. You've now tried several times. So the idea is any sort of testing yourself has significant advantages. Doing the things for an exam that are going to be on an exam, doing actually testing, solving a problem where you don't have the solution, rather than looking at the solution of a problem, is a distinct advantage in preparing for the test. In the next screencast in this series, I'll look then in more detail at distributed practice.